Have you ever discovered that the people you trusted the most had been lying to you for years? What would you do if one sentence at a family dinner completely changed your life? Before we begin, let me know in the comments. Would you forgive your parents after a lie like this? And if you enjoy real-life family drama stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more. For 26 years, I believed my parents had sacrificed everything so I could graduate from college. Every birthday, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas dinner, my mom would tell the same story. We worked overtime so you could have the future we never had. My dad would nod proudly before adding, every tuition payment was worth it. Seeing you become successful made all the sacrifices worthwhile. Everyone around the dinner table would smile. My relatives would praise them. My cousins even joked that my parents deserved an award for being the most supportive parents in the family. And every single time, I thanked them. I honestly believed every word. Whenever I got a promotion at work or bought something nice for myself, I made sure to spoil my parents too. I paid for vacations. I covered expensive dinners. I even helped renovate their kitchen because, in my mind, none of my success would have been possible without their sacrifices. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, there were small signs that something wasn't right. Whenever I asked about student loans, my parents always changed the subject. Whenever friends talked about scholarships or financial aid, my mom would quickly interrupt and remind everyone that they had paid every penny themselves. She loved hearing people praise them. At the time, I thought she was simply proud. Now, I realize she was protecting a lie. The truth stayed buried for almost 8 years after I graduated. Then one ordinary Sunday changed everything. My grandfather, my dad's father, had just turned 82. The whole family gathered at his house outside Denver. Nothing unusual. The backyard smelled like barbecue. Kids were running around with water balloons. My uncles argued over football. The women laughed inside the kitchen while preparing dessert. It felt like every other family reunion we'd ever had. After dinner, Grandpa asked if he could say a few words. Everyone gathered around the patio. He thanked us for coming. He joked about getting older. Then he looked directly at me. "I've always been proud of you, Ethan." I smiled. "Thanks, Grandpa." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an old envelope. The paper looked yellow from age. "I think it's finally time you have this." I laughed. "What is it?" He smiled. "Something I should have given you years ago." Inside the envelope were copies of bank transfers, dozens of them. Every semester, every tuition payment, each transfer had one name listed as the sender. Not my mom, not my dad, it was my grandfather. At first, I assumed there had to be some mistake. Maybe he had helped with one semester, maybe he'd covered books. But then I kept reading. Freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year, every single payment came from Grandpa's account. Every single one. I looked up, completely confused. "What is this?" Grandpa frowned. "Your college tuition." I laughed awkwardly. "My parents paid for college." The entire backyard went silent. Even the kids stopped yelling. Grandpa looked at my parents, then back at me. "No, son. I paid every dollar." For a second, no one spoke. I looked at Mom. She suddenly became very interested in her glass of iced tea. Dad wouldn't even make eye contact. My heart started racing. "What do you mean?" Grandpa sighed heavily. "When you were accepted into college, your parents told me they couldn't afford it. I had recently sold a piece of land your grandmother and I owned. I told them I'd cover everything." I stared at him. "But my parents always said—" "I know what they said," he interrupted softly. "They asked me not to tell you." I turned toward my parents. Mom forced a nervous smile. "It wasn't exactly like that." Dad cleared his throat. "We were going to tell you eventually." Eventually? 8 years after graduation? After thousands of thank yous? After years of believing their story? I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I asked the question that had been burning inside my head. "So, every time you told people you worked overtime to pay my tuition?" Neither of them answered. Grandpa did. That wasn't true. The silence that followed was unbearable. I looked around the backyard. Everyone avoided eye contact. My aunt suddenly remembered she needed to help inside. My uncle pretended to check his phone. Even my cousins looked uncomfortable. Then something clicked. Everyone already knew. I looked at my older cousin. You knew? He slowly nodded. I thought you knew too. My stomach dropped. Almost my entire family had known the truth. Except me. For years, I had been the only person living inside the lie. I couldn't breathe. Every memory suddenly felt fake. Every speech, every emotional story, every proud moment had all been built on something that never happened. Finally, my mom spoke. We didn't lie. I looked at her in disbelief. You didn't? She crossed her arms. We raised you. We supported you emotionally. So we earned some credit. Some credit? They had accepted every compliment, every thank you, every gift, every vacation I'd paid for because I believed they had sacrificed everything for me. Dad tried calming the situation. Your grandfather wanted to help. We never asked him to. Grandpa immediately shook his head. That's not true. Everyone looked toward him again. I still have the emails. My father's face turned pale. The emails? Grandpa nodded. You asked me to pay because you didn't want to touch your retirement savings? I agreed. But I also told you someday Ethan deserved to know. Nobody spoke. Grandpa continued. You promised you'd tell him after graduation. You never did. For the first time in my life, I saw my father speechless. The man who always had an answer for everything couldn't say a single word. I quietly folded the bank statements and placed them back inside the envelope. Then I stood up. I need some air. No one stopped me. I walked down the driveway toward my car. I wasn't angry anymore. I was numb. Because the biggest pain wasn't learning who paid my tuition. The biggest pain was realizing my parents had watched me thank them for years. Knowing every word belonged to someone else. And that was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to let this stay buried any longer. When I got home that night, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't check my phone. I just sat on the edge of my couch with Grandpa's envelope in my hands, reading those bank transfers over and over again, as if they might suddenly change. They didn't. Every payment matched one of my tuition bills. Every date lined up perfectly. For nearly an hour, I stared at the ceiling, replaying conversations I'd had with my parents over the years. The time Mom cried when I graduated and said, all those extra shifts were worth it. The Father's Day speech where I thanked Dad for putting my education before his own retirement. The vacations I'd paid for because I thought I was finally giving something back. The expensive anniversary cruise, the kitchen remodel, the monthly checks I'd quietly sent whenever they hinted money was tight. None of those gifts bothered me. I would have helped them anyway. What hurt was that every act of gratitude had been built on a story they knew wasn't true. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was Mom, then Dad, then Mom again. Finally, a group text. Can we please talk before this gets out of hand? That sentence made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it told me exactly what they were worried about. Not me, not our relationship, their reputation. I didn't reply. The next morning, I drove back to Grandpa's house. He answered the door before I even knocked. I figured you'd come. I nodded. I need to know everything. He invited me inside. For nearly 3 hours, he answered every question I asked. He showed me copies of canceled checks, wire confirmations, emails, even handwritten notes from my father thanking him for saving the family. One email caught my attention immediately. Dad had written, "We'll let Ethan believe we handled tuition. He doesn't need to feel like charity paid for his education." I frowned. That almost sounds reasonable. Grandpa sighed. Keep reading. I scrolled farther down. The next sentence made my stomach turn. Besides, he'll appreciate us more if he thinks we made the sacrifice. I read it again. Then again. There it was, in black and white. Not protection, not pride, manipulation. Grandpa quietly placed a hand on my shoulder. I wanted to tell you years ago. So why didn't you? He looked ashamed. Because I gave them my word. They were my son and daughter-in-law. I believed they'd eventually tell you. They never did. I wasn't angry with Grandpa. If anything, I felt guilty. The man who had actually changed my life had stayed silent because he believed he was protecting his family, while the people he protected used that silence to rewrite history. Before leaving, Grandpa handed me a small flash drive. I scanned everything, in case you ever need it. I slipped it into my pocket. I hope I won't. He looked at me sadly. I think you will. 3 days later, Mom invited me over for dinner. It'll just be us. I knew exactly what that meant. Damage control. When I arrived, the table was already set. My favorite meal: homemade lasagna, garlic bread, chocolate pie. Normally, it would have felt comforting. Instead, it felt rehearsed. We ate almost 10 minutes in complete silence before Dad finally spoke. So, I set my fork down. So? He forced a smile. Let's not make one misunderstanding destroy our family. I looked directly at him. A misunderstanding? Mom jumped in. Your grandfather is old. He remembers things differently. I blinked. Seriously? Dad nodded. He's confused. Without saying a word, I reached into my jacket and placed the flash drive on the table. I've seen the emails. Neither of them moved. The bank transfers, the checks, the receipts, the thank you notes, and the message where Dad literally wrote that I'd appreciate you more if I believed the lie. The color disappeared from Dad's face. Mom whispered, "He showed you everything?" Everything. Silence. Finally, Dad leaned back. Fine. We didn't tell you. But it wasn't malicious. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't? No. We gave you opportunities. We encouraged you. We supported you. You wouldn't have graduated without us. I shook my head. That's not the point. Mom suddenly became defensive. Then what is the point? I took a deep breath. The point is that every achievement I celebrated, I credited to you. You accepted that credit. You watched me thank you. You watched me spend thousands trying to repay a debt I never actually owed. Mom rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. You act like we stole from you. That sentence changed everything, because technically, they had, not my tuition, but something else, my trust. I stood up. I think we're done. Dad quickly blocked the doorway. You're overreacting? I looked him straight in the eyes. No. I've been underreacting for 8 years. I walked around him and left. The following weekend, my cousin Megan called. I need to tell you something. We met at a coffee shop downtown. She looked nervous. I didn't know whether to tell you. What? She hesitated. Aunt Linda? My mom? They've been making fun of you. I frowned. For what? She looked embarrassed. They joked that you'd keep buying your parents gifts forever because you believed the tuition story. I felt sick. What? They called you, she looked down, the investment that keeps paying dividends. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything around me. The coffee machines, the music, the conversations, everything faded into silence. Because suddenly I realized this wasn't just a lie. It had become a family joke. People had laughed behind my back while I thanked my parents for sacrifices they never made. Megan slid her phone across the table. I wasn't supposed to show you. It was a screenshot from the family group chat. One message from my aunt read, "Looks like Ethan booked another vacation for his parents. Best return on investment ever." Another replied with laughing emojis. Then my mother answered, "Let's hope he never asks too many questions." I stared at the screen until the words blurred. That was it. Whatever guilt I had about exposing the truth disappeared. Because this was no longer about protecting my grandfather or embarrassing my parents. This was about ending a lie that had been entertaining my entire family for years. As I left the coffee shop, I made one decision. I wasn't going to argue anymore. I wasn't going to beg for an apology. I wasn't going to scream. I was simply going to let the truth speak for itself. And once everyone saw the evidence, no one would ever be able to rewrite the story again. The following Tuesday, my phone rang. It was my Aunt Linda. the same aunt who had laughed in the family group chat. "Ethan," she said in an unusually sweet voice, "your mom told me things are tense." "Tense?" I asked. "Families fight, it happens." I stayed quiet, she continued, but airing private matters only makes everyone look bad. There it was. Not "I'm sorry," not "what happened was wrong," just another reminder to protect the family's image. I asked her one question. "If Grandpa hadn't told me the truth, would any of you have?" The line went silent. After several seconds, she finally answered, "Probably not." Then she quickly added, "But that's not the point." "It is to me." I hung up. That same afternoon, I received a message from Grandpa. "I'm sorry this has become such a mess." I called him immediately. "You have nothing to apologize for." He sighed. "Your father isn't speaking to me anymore." That hit harder than I expected. The man who had paid nearly $200,000 for my education, the man who had quietly carried that burden for years, was now being treated like the villain because he told the truth. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to expose anyone out of anger. I was going to make sure the one person who deserved credit finally received it. A month later, Grandpa turned 83. My cousins decided to throw him a surprise birthday party at the same house where everything had fallen apart. Almost everyone came. My parents were there, my aunts and uncles, family friends, even neighbors who had known Grandpa for decades, about 40 people in total. After dinner, my cousin tapped her glass. Ethan wanted to say a few words. I stood up. My parents smiled. I think they believed I was about to smooth everything over. Dad even raised his glass. I looked around the room. I've given a lot of speeches in my life. When I graduated college, when I got promoted, even at Mom and Dad's anniversary party. I thanked two people over and over. I looked at my parents. They accepted every word. Their smiles began to fade. I reached into my jacket and pulled out an envelope. The same envelope Grandpa had handed me weeks earlier. But today, I finally get to thank the right person. I turned toward Grandpa. "When I was 18 years old, you quietly changed my life. You asked for nothing. You wanted no recognition. You simply believed your grandson deserved an education." Grandpa immediately shook his head. "You don't have to do this." "Yes," I said. "I do." I held up copies of the bank transfers. I spent 8 years believing someone else made that sacrifice. Today, I found out who really did. Every person in that backyard understood exactly what I meant. You could hear a pin drop. I walked over to Grandpa. Then, in front of everyone, I hugged him. "Thank you for believing in me, for investing in my future, for expecting nothing in return." When I stepped back, Grandpa had tears in his eyes. So did I. Behind us. My parents looked frozen. Nobody clapped. Nobody spoke. Finally, Uncle Mark broke the silence. "Is it true?" He looked directly at my father. Dad swallowed hard. "Yes." One word. That was all it took. The room erupted. "You let your own father pay? You lied all these years?" "I defended you. I told people how hard you worked." Voices came from every direction. Some relatives looked angry. Others looked embarrassed. A few simply walked away. Mom tried to explain. "We never meant for this to happen." I couldn't stay silent anymore. It didn't just happen. It happened every single time someone thanked you. It happened every birthday, every holiday, every graduation celebration. You had hundreds of chances to tell the truth. You chose not to. Dad suddenly lost his temper. "So what? We raised you. We changed your diapers. We put food on the table. You owe us respect." I nodded slowly. "I've always respected you. But respect isn't a reward for lying. And being my parents doesn't make honesty optional." The silence afterward felt heavier than anything I'd ever experienced. One by one, people started leaving, not because they were bored, because there was nothing left to say. The truth had spoken for itself. Over the next few weeks, things changed quickly. Mom called every day. I didn't answer. Dad left long voicemails. I didn't listen. Aunt Linda texted. "Can't we just move on?" I replied with 4 words. After an honest apology. None came. Instead, I heard from relatives. Several admitted they had always suspected something wasn't right. Others apologized for believing the story. A few confessed they should have spoken up years earlier. Then something unexpected happened. Grandpa called. "I need a favor." "Anything." "I want you to come with me." "Where?" "The bank." The next morning, we drove there together. After signing a few papers, Grandpa smiled. "I've been thinking. I'm 83. I don't need much anymore." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were the documents for a college scholarship fund. The fund would help students in our town whose families couldn't afford tuition. Its name stopped me cold. The Carter Family Scholarship. "But our family doesn't deserve this name." Grandpa smiled gently. "You do. The name isn't about your parents. It's about what comes next." I couldn't speak. He continued. "I spent years paying for one student's education. Now maybe we can help hundreds." For the first time since learning the truth, something good had come from all of it. The lie ended, but kindness continued. Over the next year, we awarded scholarships to 6 students. Each one reminded me of myself at 18, scared, hopeful, dreaming bigger than their bank accounts. Helping them healed something inside me that revenge never could. Nearly a year after the birthday party, my parents asked to meet. I almost said no. But curiosity won. We met at a quiet diner halfway between our homes. They looked older, smaller somehow. Dad spoke first. "We lost friends." Mom quietly added, "People stopped believing us." I waited. Finally, Dad looked me in the eyes. "I'm sorry. Not for getting caught, not for being embarrassed, for lying." Mom started crying. "I wanted people to admire us. I didn't think about what it would cost you." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was honest. For the first time in years, I forgave them. Not because they deserved it, because I didn't want to carry that weight forever. Forgiveness didn't erase what happened. It didn't magically rebuild trust. That would take years, maybe longer. But it gave us a chance to stop living inside the lie. Today, when people ask how I paid for college, I smile. I had someone who believed in me. Then I tell them about my grandfather, not because he wanted recognition, but because people like him deserve to be remembered. And every time another student receives a scholarship from the Carter Family Scholarship Fund, I know his generosity will outlive every lie that tried to hide it. So now I want to ask you, if you were in my position, would you have exposed the truth in front of the whole family, or would you have stayed silent to keep the peace? Let me know your answer in the comments. And if this story kept you hooked until the end, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves real family drama stories. You never know, someone out there might need the reminder that the truth has a way of finding its way into the light.